run, but still not a Cinderella because they haven't made the Final Four.
I've got the same matchup, Kentucky-Wichita State. The only difference is that I have West Virginia in place of Maryland. So, Carl, very similar. And be warned, everybody out there, me and Carl have very similar brackets. Like, unbelievably similar. We have the same exact Elite Eight, and I believe we only have one difference in the Final Four. So, it's not going to be unbelievably entertaining when it comes to us revealing our picks. Carl, I've got Kentucky going to the Final Four. It seemed like the obvious pick from the start. You agree?
Yeah, no. I am personally picking Hampton to make the Final Four. The 16 seed will upset everyone. And actually, you know what? National title for Hampton. I think they can really make some noise in Finland.
All right. Well, I think Carl has spoken. Carl definitely has spoken.
And with Carl speaking, that brings us to the wild, wild West, and what a wild West it could be. When you look at this region, there's a lot of teams who can get stuff done. I was looking over this region, I'm just like, there's the Big Ten Player of the Year, there's the Pac-12 Player of the Year, there's the SEC Player of the Year, there's the Southern Conference Player of the Year, if you want to count that as a big major award. I'm assuming the Ivy League Player of the Year was on Harvard. I don't really follow them. I think Georgia State actually has the Sun Belt Player of the Year, too. So, like, there's just Player of the Year all over the place. There's so much talent in this bracket, all top to bottom, really. But when we look at this bracket, it really could. There's a lot that could happen, and yet I think that almost everybody expects a very similar Elite Eight, and I think we'll get into that a little later. But no, let's begin. What are some of those upset picks you're looking at first round?
All right. Well, I think the Wild West it's a very accurate representation of how the West could turn out. Here's the thing I look at. I think the 8-9 matchup, we got an upset potential. I think 5-12, we've got an upset potential. I think we got 6-11, 3-14, and 10-7. I think most of the matchups in here, you could say, could theoretically be an upset. However, I am not buying all of them. First upset I've got to go with my Buckeyes over VCU. And I'm not sure it's even an upset at this point. They are probably the favorites to win this game.
And if you look at the public, according to ESPN, they are currently at 57.7%. Computers have them at 57%, so right around there too. They are the favorites in that game.
Yeah, so favorites to win the game. And unfortunately, they are, of course, lower, which means it would be an upset. So they're the first upset. Look, this team can go as far as D'Angelo Russell can carry them, and that could be really far. He could be Shabazz Napier of this year. Unfortunately, they may not have quite the same supporting cast as Napier did, but I like them in this round. And my other upset pick to watch for is Ole Miss over Xavier. Look, I'm not a big fan of Xavier. I'm not a fan of the Big East. I think it's a solid conference, but not anything really to be scared of. Depth, sure, but top talent, I am not sold. I think Ole Miss walks in and hands a defeat to Xavier, led by Stephon Moody, Jarvis Summers. I think this team has what it takes, and I think they're going to pull off the win in what I expect to be a relatively high-scoring game.
All right, moving on with this region, I'm just going to say this as a disclaimer to the public, and more of like a public service announcement. Do not pick Harvard. Please. I know Harvard's done stuff for you before, but they're not going to do anything this year. Harvard lost by 49 to Virginia. That's a lot, by the way. They almost blew it in the Ivy League. They're just not going to do much in the tournament. So please, for your own bracket safety, do not pick Harvard. Moving on, I'm personally picking Wofford over Arkansas. I know this is something that Noah actually disagrees with, and this is one of the few spots on our bracket where we have a really big disagreement. This is a Wofford team. Now, let me tell you, a Wofford team with pizzazz, potential. They were 16-2 in conference play, 28-6 overall, and sure, they lost some games, but they also won some. And when you look at this team, they won 15-16 coming in. Carl Cochran averages 15 points and 6 boards a game. And over on the Arkansas side, yes, they have Bobby Portis, but if Wofford can use their defense to shut him down, which I think they have the ability to, Wofford could pull a stunner here. I know Noah disagrees, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, no, Carl, I don't think that it's impossible for them to beat them. I just do think that Bobby Portis is going to have a big game and help them weather a Wofford storm. I think Wofford will make it close. 12-5 is always a spot where the 5 seed could easily go down. But I like Bobby Portis to be able to help keep this team afloat. All right.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. It's an upset pick. I know it's not 100%, but I'm taking my chance there. I think March Madness, you occasionally have to take your chance on a team that may not be the favorite, but definitely has a chance. All right, moving on in this region. Is there a team now you could see going to, Sweet 16 possibly, or even to the Final Four, outside of, say, UNC, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Baylor?
I think that I personally don't have one, but if I were to say that you want to pick a Cinderella, I think the best place to pick one is probably Ole Miss. I picked them a second ago to beat Xavier, but Baylor isn't unbeatable. I think they're a terrific rebounding team, and I think they have a great core in terms of that, because I think rebounding really helps you in March Madness, but I think they are beatable. If you're looking for another one, Ohio State, once again, they can go as far as D'Angelo Russell can carry them. Sure, they have Zona, but depending on how D'Angelo Russell wins, how D'Angelo Russell plays, you never know, they could pull off a win, and that would go a long way to pushing them towards a Sweet 16 and an Elite 8 berth. So, I wouldn't say that if you want to hedge your bets, to bet on maybe a 10 or lower seed making it to the Sweet 16, but I'm not saying it's impossible. I think there are two very good candidates in Ole Miss and Ohio State.
Speaking of hedging bets on teams to make the Sweet 16, I already talked about them. I've got Wofford. I think it's an interesting pick. I think it could completely backfire me, and I think they could get blown out by Arkansas, and I think that I don't care. Alright, that brings us continuing on. Best player in the region. And when you look at best player in the region, there's a lot of choices here. Like, there's Joe Young, who was Pac-12 Player of the Year. There's Bobby Portis, who was SEC Player of the Year. There's D'Angelo Russell, who was Big Ten Player of the Year. There's Wisconsin, which has Frank Kaminsky. Actually, I lied about D'Angelo Russell. Frank Kaminsky was Big Ten Player of the Year.
Yeah.
But D'Angelo Russell has the talent of the Big Ten Player of the Year. You look to Arizona, they've got the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, and a bunch of other good players. There's a lot of talent in this region. But I think the one guy you have to look to is the guy that all of college basketball has been looking to all year, and that's Frank Kaminsky. He may not be the greatest player, and he may not be the best player once he gets to the NBA, but he is an extremely good college player. He averages 18 points and 8 boards, and I think that he'll be able to lead this team to an Elite 8 appearance, where I'm not going to, release my pick or anything, but yeah, they're going to lose. Noah, your favorite player in this region? Favorite, best?
Once again, I'm not going with best player this season. I'm going with who I think is going to be the best player in this region during the tournament. And for me, that's Stanley Johnson of Arizona. Got up 14 points, 7 rebounds, 2 steals a game. A very versatile player. I think he's going to be I think he's a surefire NBA lottery pick, and I think he's going to be a big-time player once he makes it there. Very athletic, very talented, and I think he's a big reason why Arizona has a very good shot of making the Final Four.
Alrighty, and I completely agree, and that does bring us to the end of this segment. Talking about who's Sweet 16 and Elite 8, as I've alluded to, I do have Wofford in the Sweet 16, better than that is chalk. Wisconsin, Baylor, Arizona. And in the end, I do have the Wildcats up over Wisconsin. When you look to the Wildcats, for me, they've got a small edge over Wisconsin. I think it's mainly because Wisconsin just cannot create turnovers. They're a good rebounding team, but a team like Arizona that's active on defense will be able to create turnovers and create extra possessions, which could very likely put them up over the top in this game and propel them into the Final Four. Now, your opinion?
I got 100% chalk in this region. I always seem to have one region that I have 100% chalk in. This is that one. I got Wisconsin over UNC. I was appealing to go with UNC, and I was debating it because I do have Arizona beating Wisconsin, so I was thinking, if they're going to lose the next round, it could theoretically be a smart bet, but I think Wisconsin, at the end of the day, comes out with a victory. I don't think Baylor's rebounding is enough. I think Tarkowski holds them back just enough to get Arizona over the hump. And in this game, I think it's the rematch of last year. And Arizona's got a sour taste in their mouth from Wisconsin winning that game. I like what Arizona's got top to bottom. Stanley Johnson, they've got Ashley, they've got Tarkowski, who is, if you didn't know, one of my favorite players in college basketball. Stanley Johnson as well. As I just said, I think he's going to be the best player in this region, and I think he is the difference as Arizona goes through to the Final Four to match up with Kentucky. All right.
Question. Why would the viewers know that that you really like Tarkowski?
I've probably mentioned it, Tarkowski. I've mentioned it in every single college basketball thing related to Arizona ever.
Yeah, no, this is the last time we did a college basketball show on the Infinity Sports Network.
It's a fair point, but maybe they do. Maybe they do.
Maybe they're stalking you. We don't know. We are open to all viewers, and we're happy you're here. Jake Laker, if you're listening, knock off.
Yeah.
Continuing on, actually, you know what? This is the time we are going to bring on another member of the Infinity Sports Network. Miles Klotz will be joining us soon, and while he's coming on, Noah, how do we discuss that 9-point Boise State lead over Dayton currently at the half in the first 4 games? That's quite the shocker going on. Dayton was supposed to be like a 9 seed.
The Wichita State shocker?
Yep.
All right, Carl, we do have Miles here. Miles, how you doing?
Hey, how are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty well. Well, it's time, of course, for the East. And Carl, you are, of course, going to be taking it away. And you have a question regarding the strength of this region, Carl.
Yeah, when we look at this region, there's some questionable teams. You look to, let's say, Oklahoma, one of the 3 seeds that people think could be knocked off very early in comparison to, say, Notre Dame or Iowa State. You've got some teams that are kind of been up and down, say Providence, who's a fairly popular upset pick against Northern Illinois, who's a mid-major that's very untested against good teams, and then you have teams like NC State and LSU who have just been inconsistent. But to top it all off, you have the 1 seed that is commonly referred to as the most upsettable 1 seed, possibly in the whole tournament with Villanova. They've had some off days, specifically when they lost to Georgetown. So the question is this the weakest region of the 4? Miles, we'll begin with you. Is the East
It's not. Duke's region is weaker. Because when you look at Duke, you look at teams that were horribly overseeded, such as Georgetown, and teams like UCLA and Iowa, and like St. John's. I think Duke's region is certainly weaker, because in this region here, I know Northern Iowa's a 5 seed, but they're a very dangerous team, and they proved it by going out and beating Wichita State this season. They're a really dangerous team, even if they don't have the types of quality wins that other teams have. Providence, I think, is a very good team that just doesn't get a lot of respect because it plays in the Big East, which is because the Big East is not as accessible through TV because it's not broadcast on ESPN or ESPN networks. I don't think people are as knowledgeable about the Big East as they are the ACC or the Big Ten or the Big 12. And it's the same way with the Pac-12 because they have the Pac-12 network, and also because people on the East like me aren't staying up till 10 o'clock to watch Arizona versus Oregon State. But I think, teams like that are undervalued, and then you have teams in this region like Oklahoma, who's my pick to come out of this region as the Final Four team, and then Michigan State and Virginia are both teams that Michigan State is hitting its stride at the right time, and with a healthy Justin Anderson, Virginia can go very far.
Yeah, I think that in terms of depth top to bottom, I do think that the East is not as bad as people think. I do agree that Duke's region is very overseeded. However, when I look at just 1 seed, and I think this is probably the reason that people think it's the weakest region, is the fact that the 1 seed is Villanova, and I think a lot of people dislike Villanova. I am one of them. And I think that gives it the perception because a lot of people base regions based off the number 1 seed. They look at it and they say, oh, Kentucky's in 1, of course. That makes Kentucky strong. You see Wisconsin.
People talk about the regions like, I saw people on Twitter when the selection show, oh, damn, we're in Kentucky's region, just disregarding the fact that there are other teams in there. And I think, I don't even think I really understand why people are so down on Villanova. Like, I don't really see them as